that's
agreeable.
important because I think it's not only a lack of communication that hurts relationships, but I think the wrong communication. I think after a few
3
months
months,
with
yeah.
somebody,
Yeah.
do I want to spend my life with this
Right.
person? I hear about these people that have been dating 5,
Yeah,
6,
that's too
7
long.
years, which I think is really too long. Especially on a woman's part, to give a
Right.
man 5, 6, 7 years to decide if he wants to spend his life with you. He should take more responsibility about where it's going.
Right.
And so I tell people the reason they haven't committed is because they're not
They're
committed.
not committed. That's right.
And the fact that he hasn't committed means that he's still keeping his options open. So face that.
Right.
And bring it to a head. It takes a renewed commitment because commitment is what allows you to ride out turbulence.
Yeah.
Hello, Joel Brooks here for In Conversation with Joel Brooks. I'm here with my lovely wife, Yvonne.
Hi, everybody. So nice to be with you.
And we've been talking in the last few podcasts about relationships. So we have a couple other questions about relationships. And so we're going to address that again today. And so, Lord, I'm calling you Lord.
Are you calling me Lord? That's a cool. I prefer Queen.
Okay,
Lord.
Queen.
You can call me Queen.
Okay,
That'll work.
Do you have any more?
I don't take the lordship seat at all, but Queen I'll take.
Okay.
And if you guys have any questions, you can always write them, send them
Right.
to us, and we would love to address them for you and give you some answers to your questions.
Right.
I think we left off on the silent treatment.
Yep.
We had a question about the silent treatment. How can a married couple deal with the silence treatment in a marriage? What is that, and what are the problems with that?
Well, like we mentioned last time, I believe the silent treatment is a reciprocity piece. It's a punitive piece. And when I'm treating you with a silent treatment, I am punishing you for something you either said or something you did, and I cut off communication. It's a way of withdrawing my heart from you. And so I believe that it's a sign of immaturity, it's a sign of control, and it's not healthy. And so if I love you, I want you to know how I'm feeling. I want you to know what's on my mind.
Right.
So communication itself is a sign of love. God communicates. He gives us the Bible because he wants us to know what to do. He wants us to know where he is, who he is, where he is, how to locate ourselves in him. And so he gives us his word. And so I believe that communication is the basis of life. So when we stop communicating, there becomes no basis for what we're doing. So to me, that's a big deal.
Right. I think there's also a difference between silence treatment and let's discuss this at the right time.
That's good.
Right.
That's a
Because
really good
sometimes
point.
people will say, well, I do want to talk, but I'm not ready to talk.
Right.
There have been times that I've wanted to talk to you, and I said, okay, I'm not ready to talk just yet. And I think for me, because I'm still processing things in my mind, looking for maybe where I've been wrong, or just kind of going over my thinking, and sometimes, a lot of times, hearing from God about it.
Right.
Because God's not really going to talk to you about your mate, per se. He's going to talk to you about you.
Yeah.
And so I think sometimes it's not necessarily a silent treatment, but it is, hey, I'm processing. And so in those cases, I feel like you have to let your partner know,
Right.
hey, I do want to talk to you, but right now I don't think I'm ready. What are your thoughts, about that? Is that
Yeah, I think that's
agreeable?
important because I think it's not only a lack of communication that hurts relationships, but I think the wrong communication
Right.
can hurt. And so I want to say what I need to say with the right. The Bible says be slow to answer. And so I want to take time before I respond or react to something and make sure I do it in the right context.
Right.
My mentor taught me that we communicate through word, gesture, and spirit. Okay, and when I'm offended, when I'm upset, my words, I might be watching my words, but I'm not watching how I say them.
Right.
Or the gestures that I'm making while I'm saying them. And so you want to make sure that you take responsibility for all of your communication. They say a huge percent of communication is nonverbal.
Right.
So I want to make sure
agree.
that I'm healthy and that I'm responding in a loving, healthy way. And so if I'm not there, it may be better to wait, and it would be wise for the other person is if someone is asking for time and for space to give it to them, and not say, no, we're going to deal with this now.
Now, absolutely. We have to deal with it now.
Yeah.
And I think the other danger of that is when you're elevated, you're into an angry space, you say things that you don't mean.
Right.
You tend to be a little bit more careless, with your communication. And those things are typically heart-wrenching things, and things that some people find really hard to get over, like name-calling and things like that. And so it's really great just to sit down sometime and chill and say, I do want to communicate about this, because the goal should always be, let's get back to a healthy place, or let's just discuss, this issue. But when you bring anger and you're trying to discuss something when everybody's angry, if you're not careful, you can actually do more damage. And cause,
that's a good point. That's a really good point.
Because it's really hard for me to overcome how you think about me and how you see me. You talked about that a little bit in a previous episode. What do you really believe about your mate? And I think that should be the first consideration. And so why do you think it's typically not?
Because we don't know how important it is. I believe we kind of go with the last thing said. And so rather than having a foundational basis for how we see each other and what we believe about each other, we tend to go with how we're feeling in the moment.
Right.
So if you offended me in the moment, it can override everything else that I know about you to be true, that you love me, that you want to spend your life with me, that we adore each other. But right now, I'm ticked at you, so I don't see any of that. And so it's important that we remember that in 3 studies that we viewed, there's a third one now that happened at Harvard that actually show the key to couples who do well, who have good relationships, have a healthy attitude towards their mate's behavior. And they all 3 say it different ways. But we've always talked about Gottman and the Syracuse University of New York study. But there's a third one from Harvard that basically says the same thing. And as Christians, when you hear that, they're talking about grace.
Right.
Okay, and so if I'm not feeling in a gracious place, it may be best that if I can't say what I'm saying with grace, the Bible even encourages us to do that, to let our words be seasoned with grace. If I can't do that, it might be better for me not to say anything.
Right, exactly. Another question that someone had is, in your opinion, what ways do we unintentionally distance ourselves from each other? And we know arguing in a relationship is something that can distance you from your mate, but what are some ways that we unintentionally distance ourselves from each other? First thing I thought about was like being on your cell phone all the time.
Okay.
It's like we're in a series of, we're in a place where everybody's connected, but nobody's connected.
That's good. That's a good way to put it.
Right. And so we have more connection and actual less real connection. And so I think being on your cell phone constantly and not having that face-to-face time is one way that you're not trying to disconnect, but you can wake up and realize, hey, we haven't spoken today. Even if we've been in the same house all day, we haven't spoken today. We're constantly on our phones.
Right.
What do you think? What other ways do you feel like?
Some of us are more easily distracted than others.
Right.
And so I think being intentional about communicating, being intentional about communicating in your mate's love language.
Yes.
Okay, communicating in the way they hear things and actually adapting to their perspective of things is a big deal. I think the intentional part, I know on my part, I can just fall into a groove of scrolling or watching TV and just get into escapism and just escaping the moment rather than actually dealing with the moment. And so that's been a huge issue for me, is actually being present. Okay, I find that one of my main weaknesses is I'm usually thinking about being someplace other than where I am in the moment. Okay, and so intentionally being present, listening, responding, and actually positioning myself so that I can actually respond positively to what's being said it's a big deal. But I know I've made that mistake a lot,
Yeah.
not being present.
What about your wiring? Because some people can mistake wiring for distance.
Right.
But yet, if you're like, for example, if you're introvert and you're an extrovert, the husband's an introvert, the wife is an extrovert. Now, I'm not an extrovert. I thought many times that I was an extrovert, but I'm not. I'm kind of like right on the middle of the line there.
Yep.
And so, how can you work that out so that you're not intentionally being distant? Because somebody who's an introvert, they're home now, they're ready to recharge. They're ready to sit. They're ready to be quiet. They're ready to be in their space. Versus someone who says, "I'm home. Let's go to the next thing. Let's get to the next thing. Let's get the next thing going."
Right.
And so, how do you work in the ways that people are wired? Maybe.
Well, I think one of the things is that we want to understand one another. We want to understand how the person is wired. I'll use myself again as an example, not so positive example, but I can be in the house, and what I really want is presence.
Right.
Okay, and so I'm cool knowing you're in the room next door, knowing that you're in the house, hearing sounds of you cooking, hearing sounds of you getting ready, getting dressed. That's comforting to me without the communication. Okay, and so I can spend the day with you in my stuff, studying, playing music, and not say anything to you, and it not feel like it was a void, not feel like we didn't communicate.
Right.
Whereas that could be really selfish. You know, that could be really selfish of me to spend my whole day just doing what makes me happy and not reaching out. And so I know there have been times when you come in the office, you say, "No, you got a family out here."
Right, come out.
Yeah, and so you need to come out and talk to
world.
us, sit with us, engage with us. And so sometimes because of the way you're wired, you don't see the value of things that are not natural to you, if that makes sense.
Right.
So I've had to learn the value of communicating.
Cool. Someone else asked a question. How do you foster godliness in the dating stage?
In the dating stage, well, you have to set a goal, a mutually agreed goal of how you're going to date, how you're going to live. Set boundaries, okay, and then make sure that one of you is strong enough to keep them
Right.
at any given time.
Right.
If that makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
so
we have boundaries.
Yeah. So you hold each other accountable.
Absolutely.
And so there's certain situations that you don't want to get in. I think one of the misconceptions is that the older you are, the stronger you are. That's not necessarily true.
That's not true. Right. We know
The
that.
older you are, you've maybe been married or been in a physical relationship, and you have history, and for you, first base always winds up at home on a home run,
Yes.
because when you're married, that's the way it works.
Right. Absolutely.
See? And so I think, so a lot of those curbs that would keep you out of trouble are not there. And you tend to trust yourself. You say, okay, well, I can handle this, when really you're worse than a 17, 18-year-old.
Absolutely.
And so I think you have to talk about it, set boundaries, and stay out of situations that could easily allow you to get in trouble.
Absolutely. Because when you love someone, it's easy.
Yeah. Well, it's natural to want to touch them.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I would be a little concerned if there were two people who were in love and they weren't.
And they didn't have to fight to stay apart. Absolutely.
Yeah, it was easy for them.
Absolutely.
I'd be a little concerned
Absolutely.
about that. Yeah.
We had a long distance relationship, and so we would go to your parents' house a lot.
Yep.
Get off the plane. I would stay with someone, or say,
I think that made it a little easier.
right, but it was still hard.
It was still hard. Yeah.
Very hard. To stay away from you. And that brings me to another question about long distance. This person here is saying, I met someone who lives across the country.
Yep.
That's a really great person, but, I hear so many horror stories about long distance relationships. Do they work?
Right.
Can long distance relationship work? Well, we are an example of a long distance relationship. We've been married for 22 years. Yep, I got it right. I had to think about it for a minute.
I'm watching. I'm listening.
I had to think about it, but for 22 years. So what is your take on that?
Well, what I found out in our relationship is that you can fall in love with a voice, and that presence accompanies voice. Okay, that when I have your voice, I have you. I don't have you physically, but I have the real you, your spirit, if that makes sense, your presence. And so that's all God gives us is a voice and presence.
Yes.
And we fall in love with him. And so there's substance there. And so I think it's actually easier to get to know someone, okay, when you don't have the physical issue there. I believe it's easier to get to know their heart. You get to listen to their story, you know their history. And if you guys I would be suspect of a long distance relationship that didn't spend a lot of time on the phone.
Right. Now we spent hours on the phone.
If it's 2-3 days between talking and
right.
you're talking sporadic, then that would be an issue. Maybe it's not there for you.
Right.
Okay. Maybe that's not something that should happen. And so, but a long distance relationship can actually really assist the relationship because you're not blinded by the physical aspect of it.
Right. I think with us, it caused us to get to know each other a lot quicker.
It did.
You know, because all we had was each other's voice and
That's all we had,
conversation.
yeah.
And so I feel like in most cases, it takes a year for people to kind of know for sure. For the average person, some little shorter, you know, but I think we knew very, very early.
Yeah, I think you know after a few
3
months with
yeah.
somebody, do I want to spend my life with this person? I hear about these people that have been dating 5, 6,
that's too
7
long.
years, which I think is really too long, especially on a woman's part, to give a man 5, 6, 7 years to decide if he wants to spend his life with you. You know, he should take more responsibility about where it's going.
Right.
And so I tell people the reason they haven't committed is because they're not committed.
They're not committed. That's right.
You know, and the fact that he hasn't committed means that he's still keeping his options open. And so face that.
Right.
And bring it to a head.
Right.
You know.
So talking about the godliness piece and dating, how do we foster godliness in marriage? You know, which is another question.
Yeah.
You know, when you and I talk about practicing the presence, each other's presence, but how do you, because I don't know, that's an issue right now.
Right.
Commitment and marriage is an issue right now. So how does somebody, what would you say to someone who's having that issue, and how do you, to even ask that question for a marriage, suggests that there's a problem?
Yeah. Well, I think as with anything, there are boundaries. You have to have boundaries. I believe the way to not fall is to know that you can.
Right.
And you stay out of situations that lend itself to that. Okay. I've been a single pastor. I've been a married pastor. As a married pastor, I don't have business lunches with women. They may, women may feel like that puts them at a disadvantage, but sharing a meal is an intimate setting.
Right.
Okay. I'm not in the car with other people.
Right.
Okay. And so you stay away from intimate settings, and you try and practice your mate's presence. Okay, if that makes sense. Don't do anything in their absence that wouldn't go if they were present.
Right. Exactly.
Okay. Don't say anything in their absence that you wouldn't say in their presence. Don't give a compliment to another person because your wife's not there and you feel, okay, I can say this. Okay. And so if you do that, it will keep you out of those zones. Because I think that stuff comes on progressively. You know, you cross a line and you feel okay, you begin to cross other lines.
Right.
And pretty soon you find yourself into something that you wouldn't have predicted, just because you've allowed yourself to do things that violate your conscience on a regular basis. And so I think practicing your mate's presence is a big deal.
Yeah, absolutely.
And let your mate know if something is bothering you. Okay. I've let you know at times. I say I don't feel right around this person. Right. You know.
Right. We've done that.
Yeah, and so can you try to arrange that I'm not around this person?
Right.
You know? And now if you're ignorant, you respond, well, what, do you want them or something?
Right.
You know, but let your mate tell you that this person doesn't affect me in a healthy way,
Right.
without it being something that you become suspicious about.
Right. Right.
Okay, because sin requires darkness.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and so usually when you bring something to light,
Mm-hmm.
it kills the sin.
Absolutely.
Light destroys sin.
Mm-hmm.
So if I say, hey, I don't want to, or I don't feel right watching this movie, or let's can we do something else? You know, you don't want to respond. What you want her or something? You
Right,
know,
absolutely.
You don't want to respond in an ignorant way.
Right.
You know, I'm asking for help.
Mm-hmm.
And so you help your mate, because anybody can feel lust.
Right, absolutely.
You know, the fact that you feel tempted doesn't mean that you don't love somebody.
Right, absolutely.
If that makes sense. And so,
Mm-hmm.
so I think open communication, being
Mm-hmm.
honest about how you're feeling about a certain situation, that kind of thing.
Yeah, that's what boundaries.
Boundaries, yeah.
Setting boundaries.
Yeah,
Right, exactly.
keeping them.
Mm-hmm. We had another question reference to boundaries in mixed marriages.
Okay.
How do you
Blended or mixed?
blended
Okay.
marriages?
Okay.
How do you keep your family whole with the outside distractions of a former mate?
Right.
Because that can get really, really rough, especially if the other mate still wants to be in, still wants you, and
Yeah,
this is
right.
what's happening in this
Right.
relationship based on the question.
Yeah.
So how do you get around that? Because you have to see your children, you have to communicate.
Yeah.
And so what are ways that you can have a great relationship with and kind of block out
Yeah.
the outside noise?
That one's tough.
Yeah.
That's a real tough one. I think you have to, depending on how crazy the ex might be,
Yeah.
okay, you have to have real patience and real restraint.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, because the whole idea is to break the peace of your relationship.
Right. Absolutely.
Yeah, that's the whole idea, is to break the peace that you might have.
Mm-hmm.
And so you have to guard that peace any way you can. Okay, you want to always be respectful.
Mm-hmm.
You always want to be healthy. You want to do what's best for kids.
Right,
And what's
absolutely.
best for kids is that everybody would be healthy.
Get along. Absolutely.
Okay, and that I would never speak negatively about one's parent.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, the non-custodial parent or the parent that, you know. And so I think those things can be tough. And I believe it's one of the reasons why second marriages have a higher failure rate than first marriages, is because the stress of children, the stress of exes, and all that really, really brings a lot of pressure on a relationship.
And
So it takes a lot of wisdom and a lot of patience to walk through that stuff.
I think also usually a first marriage, you have a dream. You had a dream.
Yeah.
When you started. So it takes a longer time for you to get to the place to say, okay, I'm resolving this. I'm ready to walk out of it. And so you go into a second marriage with history.
Yeah.
And so you feel like, oh no, I'm not taking this again, this stuff again.
Right.
And so you have to kind of ask God to, I guess, cause a dream to live within you again.
Yeah, you have to have your innocence restored.
Right.
I believe. I believe in your first marriage, you're like, I'm never getting divorced.
Right.
And so it takes a long time to override that value. And it's kind of like with nuts and bolts. If once it's stripped, once you pull the bolt out of it, and it's stripped, it's easier for it to lose its grip again. And I believe when you go through a divorce, you lose something. When you had a value about being married and never getting divorced, I think in order to end it, you had to give up a value. You had to give up something that you said you'd never do.
Absolutely.
And so
That's the hardest
when
part.
you go into the second one, you've already done it. And so it's like, oh man, I'm out. It becomes easier to say, I ain't putting up with this.
Right, absolutely.
Yeah,
No more.
what do people say? What is their favorite? I didn't sign up for this.
Right. Oh my goodness.
Yeah. See, and so I think that becomes a big deal, and so it takes a renewed commitment because commitment is what allows you to ride out turbulence.
Yeah.
It's the commitment that keeps a marriage together. Right? People say it's love, and a lot of people now are downplaying the importance of love in a relationship because relationships are becoming transactional. what I bring to the table,
What
what
you
you
bring
bring
to the table, absolutely.
But I believe relationships are supposed to be transformational. It's who am I in your presence? Who do I become with you? Who do you become with me? I believe you're going to be better with me than you were by yourself. And that's, if I can't be a blessing to you, then why am I here? And so I believe that's a big deal. So, so you want to be patient and good with that.
We've been counseling many people, mixed marriages and so on. Blended marriage. I don't know why I keep saying mixed, but blended marriages. And one of the statements that we've heard a lot, and you just said it, I didn't sign up for this.
Yeah.
And I'm like, you did sign up for this.
Right. What did you sign up for?
What did you sign up for?
Yeah. And you should have put it in the vows.
Right, exactly.
It should have been
signed
in the
up for
agreement.
this. Right.
Yeah, because especially in a blended family, it may be easy to marry, like say for instance, a non-custodial male, a male whose ex-wife is taking care of his kids, and then something happens there, and the kids have to come live with you. Well, that's a whole different setting than living with the guy without his kids. And so you'll have some people say, "Well, hey, I didn't sign up for that." Yes, you did.
Yeah, you did sign up for it.
You married him.
Absolutely.
You signed up to take his children too, and so that's that's a sign of immaturity and selfishness. You should get married with the thought in mind that the children may come and live with you.
Right.
You should be married with that thought in mind, and so you should always make them. And sometimes kids are healthier with you than with any other situation.
Right.
So you want to do what's best for the kids, and you never want to make them think that they're not welcome with you. I think that's the worst feeling you could ever give a kid, is that they're not welcome with their parent no more because you're with that parent.
Absolutely.
So I would bend over backwards to make them feel welcome, make them feel like they're at home.
Right. When we were planning our marriage, and our big thing was making sure everybody had a space.
Yep.
It took us a minute, about a year, to find a house that everybody would have their space, whether they wanted to be there or not. And I think we only had 3 younger ones. All of our other children were older, off in college or just graduating from college or working. But we still wanted to make sure that everybody had a place. And I think that's really important. I think the commitment is not just to your spouse, but it's also to the children, and so they become a part of the family. You become one family, just like covenant.
That's the goal,
Right, because it's covenant. It's covenant between the husband and wife, covenant between the new mom or not the new mom, the new married mom and the children, and the husband and the children. Is so important. But I think that we see things in isolation. We don't see things in its entirety. So I'm just looking at it from me and my new husband, or me and my new wife. And we're really not, we don't have that covenant relationship I'm finding with the children as well.
Yeah. That's a big deal. And it has to be really disruptive for a child who didn't choose a person to have to live with that person.
Feeling not wanted,
and submit to that person, and do what that person says, and that person's decisions having an impact upon their life. And as much as you can minimize that in a blended family, I would do that.
Right. Yeah. Cool. Well, it's great talking to you.
Cool. Good talking to you too. Good talking to you. If I weren't, I'd marry you all over again.
I'd marry you all over again in a heartbeat.
Yeah, so God bless you,
You are my
baby.
choice. God bless
and
you.
We hope you all are blessed, and we'll see you next time.
Yeah.